What's up, YouTube? In today's video, we're going to talk about how this 80 million D2C brand hired two top-tier creative strategists. If you have a D2C brand, I don't have to tell you how important creative strategy is. It's probably the most important function in your business. And we got a lot of requests for this type of role. Most of the time, we say no. The reason is that the demand for great creative strategists is much, much higher than the supply. So most of the time, unless there's something special about the brand, we say no because we know we can't deliver. This time was different, so I want to walk you through exactly how it went with our client. So at first, why we even took on the search, and the company does look kind of sus at first glance. So I'll walk you through that, and then of course where we look for talent, how we pitched them, how it went with the first candidate that looked amazing at first, but actually wasn't. How it went with the other two candidates that we actually ended up hiring, how it went with everyone else, and we had 22 candidates that we reviewed or interviewed for this role, how we tested them, and how it all ended, and it ended very happily. So let's get to it, and hopefully you can learn a ton from this video. So first of all, yeah, the company, it does look kind of sus. So this is their website. Once you put in the brand name into Google, this is what comes up, and it looks really, really bad. So here are some product images. It's essentially not a very good PDP page or product display page. So yeah, I'm removing some information that I'd rather not share, but it does not look great on first glance. So once I got a request for a call, I was like, okay, well, let's see, let's keep looking, I guess. But didn't look great at first. Then we put in their Trustpilot. We see 29% one-star reviews. Not great either. Then again, we know that the total volume is not that high. Probably it's just dissatisfied people that go in. They don't really have brand reputation set up. So probably this is a bit misleading. Okay, let's keep looking. And finally, we go to their Amazon, and I was completely blown away. So they have more than 13,000 more than 13,000 reviews, 4.6 stars. That's amazing, especially at this price point. I mean, they're onto something. They have a really good product. So everything else here is potentially indicative. This you can't fake. So I knew these guys were for real, and I was real excited to talk to them. They are actually legit. They have a really nice product. I guess I should explain how they came across it and why they look sus, but actually weren't. So they're marketers. They actually started in dropshipping, but they got really good at product development, and they had to develop hundreds of products. And yeah, over time they thought, okay, let's go to another a vertical and develop really good products there that people actually want, that we know how to market, we know how to demo, and that we know for a fact will sell well. And they're really innovative, so nothing else like that exists in the market. So they are essentially first to market. And by the way, they got to their 80 million in their second year, which is just mind blowing, and very profitably, by the way. So good for them. I was real excited to work with them. And so where we look for talent, and this is a screenshot from our LinkedIn. This is a bunch of our saved searches, and there are all kinds of D2C company lists for video editors, additional D2C brands, even more D2C brands. This one's for talent acquisition, for internal searches. So we know pretty much every D2C brand that's doing well. So then we look for creative strategists that work there. On top of that, we also know every creative agency that works in the performance marketing context. And that's exactly where we look for people. So not that complicated, especially once you know where to look. And this is how we approach people. So this is a pretty standard formula that we use. So this is the role we're hiring for this company, what the company does, highlight some of the real special things about them. And another really interesting thing is that they were able to get to this 80 million with only 1 to 2 new concepts per week. Again, if you're in creative strategy, this is really low. And it also signals how unique the offer was. That's why I'm not telling you exactly what the offer is, right? So they don't need copycats necessarily. But yeah, highlight some of the better things about the brand and the company. And go into a bit more into the role and what it's like, all the details that people are interested in, that it is remote and always will be. In terms of salary, we went with up to 170, which is probably above market for a creative strategist. probably reasonable for creative strategy leads. So we wanted someone senior, so that's what we went with, and uh, proved to be pretty accurate with the salary level that we put there. Then this was the outreach message on LinkedIn, so a candidate might receive this message from us, and this is the job description that they receive. And the main thing that I want to highlight here is the hook. So the D2C brand is crushing it despite underdeveloped creative strategies, right? Those 1 to 2 concepts that we talked about here, that's really, really low. And then we're asking people to help us unlock our full potential. And this is a really, really good combo. So number one, the brand is already successful. Everybody wants to associate with a successful brand. If they have to come in and save them, most people will say no. Why would they risk it? Most likely they would go down with the ship, right? Unsuccessful for a reason. Then again, their specific area is really underdeveloped, and they can really go to town, do really awesome work, look really good once they've accomplished the job. So it's a really good situation. Compare it to a situation where the brand would be crushing it, and they would already have great creative strategy. So then they come in thinking, hey, probably I can either keep up the same level and no one will notice it, or potentially I could even mess up and people will definitely notice. So there's nothing really to gain. So that setup isn't ideal either. But here we have, a perfect situation. And this is why we chose to highlight it in the title. Then, yeah, we talk about the brand. We did that in the previous slide. But then the other thing, we have a longer description of the role, but essentially it's coming up with unique, effective ways to highlight the benefits of the brand. That's what creative strategy is about. And of course, we give them a lot more detailed info further below in the job description. Then in terms of results, so we ended up approaching close to 160 people, had a 37.1% response rate, which is slightly above normal for the States. In Europe, it would be slightly higher, but yeah, 37.1 is where we ended up. But the real metric you want to pay attention to is the interview rate. So out of everyone you approach, how many people actually get on a call with you? And for us, it was 14.5%. 15% is normal, so right what we expected. And if you think about it, we approach 160 of the most relevant people in the world for this job. Getting to talk to 15% of them is really, really good. So the client was really pleased with that outcome and having lots of different options. Here, I wanted to go into different candidates. So I mentioned that the first candidate, at first we thought he's amazing. Oh, he's definitely gonna get the job, but he ended up not being hired. But yeah, the reason we were excited is that he's a lead creative strategist at a really, really strong brand, managing awesome budgets, has spent many years working at a marketing agency as well. So has seen many different personas, messaging types, market awareness levels, etc. Has some side business in a relevant niche, not important, which to our purposes wasn't actively looking, but has some reason to consider something. And then tons of strengths, right? So was really, really good at explaining what his job really is like, what he pays attention to, how he approaches things. And he was super, super nuanced, which is in an interview, the first thing that we're looking for. Was able to really go into metrics, really well versed in AI, had a systematic research process, and had done homework on the brand. So 10 out of 10 on the interview. We had a follow-up call with the founders. They loved him too. Why we didn't end up hiring was the test assignment. We'll talk about it in a second, but essentially he did a good job, but not as good of a job as the other candidates that sent in their submissions. Despite him being really good at interviewing, probably a real pleasure to work with. At the end of the day, what matters is the type of ads that they're able to create for the brand. So that's a really valuable lesson. Along these same lines, something I didn't mention earlier, before we even book anyone for a call, we first look at their portfolio. And if we don't like it, we don't book the call essentially. So that's the other thing that you should look at. Again, the ads speak for themselves. If someone doesn't have good ads, they can possibly save themselves on the interview, right? So that's the other thing you want to be looking out for. So always ask for a portfolio, and then always test these people, which we'll talk about in a second. Then we had our second candidate, and the client really saved us here. So at first we thought, okay, she's all right, but it's probably not gonna make it, guys. Don't waste your time. They did check her out, thankfully, and they say, wait a second, this person's really strong. We need to talk to her. So yeah, at first we said she's not stronger than our first two options. She is better than one other person we talked to. Angles were all right, but nothing out of this world. And then when the client checked it out, they said, no, this is actually pretty genius. So yeah, credit to them for and again for saving us. Would have liked her to go a bit harder on metrics. This sometimes happens with creative strategists, but she was thinking in systems. She had worked with pretty big volumes, so ended up being a really strong candidate. And then again, when we gave her the test assignment, she absolutely smashed it, and we really loved it. So that was the really the decisive factor. The other person we ended up hiring, so they were open to hiring two people, and that's what they did. That person was among our favorites from start to finish. So he had worked at a really strong direct response creative agency, working with various impressive clients, some of them spending 12 million a month, which is just insane. Yeah, had worked across a number of relevant verticals, had worked with our vertical specifically as well, had worked as a sole creative strategist for a brand, which is important because we were working with a smaller team. Again, well versed in AI and has worked across multiple genres. So there were some risks. None of them were that serious. Overall, we really like this person start to finish. And again, once we tested him, he really delivered, which we love to see. Then speaking of testing, this is how we did it. So we gave a brief, number one, with all the context, right? The website, landing page, ad library, key benefits, competitor ad library, our best performing ads, so people can kind of soak up what's working. And on the job, they would see all these things. So we thought, yeah, for sure, let's share them here as well. And then the actual brief was here. So we were looking for creativity and originality, visual storytelling, brand alignment, performance strategy, and performance analysis. And the main deliverable was creating two scripts with three hooks each, delivered in this format that you see here. And then later on, we asked for a third script for Mother's Day. This is a product that's quite giftable, so we wanted to see what kind of special angles people would come up with. And we paid every candidate for their work. I mean, they put in a fair amount of work, so we figured out what the fair hourly fee for each of them would be, and then offered that to them. That's only fair. Yeah, we don't do test assignments in any other way, especially when they take, in this case, full day, maybe even 2 full days. Cool. And then, yeah, so we had those two candidates that the client was really happy with. Um, this is a screenshot of a text that he sent to his friend who was the referral and was really pleased with our work. We ended up going with several more hires with them. So they're one of our best clients. So it really turned out well for both sides. And then if you have a key hire in a D2C business or an e-commerce business, reach out, book a call. The link's in the description. But either case, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.